What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. I really debated on doing another video today, but for those that have been on the channel, you know that I'm not always the best at keeping my word when it comes to content. I say, "Oh, I'm going to do a video tomorrow, or I'm going to do this many videos today," and then life happens, and it doesn't wind up working out. So it's not the end of the world, but it is something that I'm focused on this year and trying to do better at. And so I've said I'm gonna be doing two a day. So here you go. I did one earlier about tapering off of alcohol. I did a video yesterday. Obviously, I did the big boy video yesterday, which got pretty good views. But I also did one about my own toxic relationship with alcohol, and so I followed that up with one about tapering because that came up in a lot of the comments. And it's got like under 1,000 views, which is puts it at the very bottom of videos that I've put out, since I've been on YouTube. But you look at the comments and it's pretty clear that some folks who needed to see it saw it. And that it's been encouraging and motivating and people are sharing their stories. And so I just want to say thank you. You know, views matter in YouTube, but it's not all that matters. And that's part of the reason I hesitated. Also, I'm busy, I'm running around. Uh and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to step on my last video," because that happens sometimes, right? If you do two videos in a day, sometimes video number two will kind of take the shine away from video number one with the algorithm, right? This mysterious thing that none of us quite understand and we're trying to figure out. But anyways, if you haven't seen that video and if you're interested or if you know somebody in your life that maybe could benefit from that information, shoot it to 'em. Prison genre channels are not for everybody, and I get that. Try to do a little different over here and talk about a wide range of things. So there might be a bunch of videos that you're like, none of my people would watch this, but maybe that one will be the difference. And so there you have it. But anyways, a quick little video. Dubs did a video and Gunner followed it up because he knows the guy about the Norteño that he hated the most, or the only one he hated, or so I don't remember how he worded it. But the dude that he hated in Pelican Bay, right? And if you hadn't seen the video, the gist of it is that there was this guy, Little Man from Turlock. Dubs didn't say his name, but Gunner did in his follow up because he knew him and did time with him. Uh, Little Man from Turlock would talk on the tier in the Pelican Bay SHU program, and when you think of a tier and you see pictures of big tiers in prison and lots of people, that is not the Bay, right? The Pelican Bay, it's four cells, five technically. You have four cells that people live in, and then the shower at the end, and that's it. So it's top and bottom, total of 8 cells, 2 showers. So it's not a big environment for you to yell across. Um, and dude was telling war stories and talking about blasting Southsiders and YA and just having inappropriate conversations for mixed company, and I get that. Listening to the story, I was kind of laughing. There's an individual when I was in the Bay, and I was in the SHU program up there. Everybody around us was from the South, shall we say, and except for one of the cell, right? It's myself, and then had a homeboy downstairs, and he didn't have conversations like that over the tier, but he did have a tendency to kind of put his foot in his mouth sometimes, like when the Giants and the Angels played in the World Series. Uh, you know, shout out the Giants, and man, that was rough. I lost money on that one. But when the Giants and Angels played in the World Series, at the end of it, he yells out on the tier, "Well, you know what? If we're not going to win, I'd rather see Angels red than Dodgers blue." So comments like that don't tend to go over well with other people, and so he had a history doing that. So I've been around that type of space, and I kind of get what Dubs was saying. Then Gunn did a video and was like, "Hey, that fool got whacked in Tracy, right? And lost his life. He got removed and whatnot." So I've had some conversations. I've heard of him. I never been around Little Man from Turlock. I never did time with him. But I had heard his name, and I think there's an interesting little life lesson maybe in here. Not life lesson per se, but insight into prison. So Little Man had been no good for a long ass time. He back in High Desert when the North and South were going to war up there, like mid to late 90s, right? He was up there and he got deemed. I got a homeboy that was in AdSeg in Susanville, right? Lassen Yard. and some of those guys would come over, and he had come through there, and he was already no good. And the official charges, from what I heard, was treason. He was talking too much to the Southsiders. Now politics get a little goofy, right? So it's hard to imagine that this individual who had a passion for getting into violent conflicts with Southsiders would also be doing some form of cowardice in terms of giving them the up and up. This doesn't make sense. He was probably communicating. He was probably talking shit, and they just needed to fill in the line somehow, right? Like kind of like when you get fired, right? Like what are you getting fired for? Technically this, but really it's because you're just a jerk. So he had been deemed though, and it's interesting because you couldn't tell him that he didn't program as if he had been deemed. He went from there. He went to the Corcoran SHU. In the Corcoran SHU, it's the Gladiator days, right? Where every 10 days or so you go out to the concrete yard and you get into a fight with the opposition. Uh, there was a lot of people who were active, to use today's language, not my favorite word, but there's a lot of people who were active until they went to the Corcoran SHU during the Gladiator days, and all of a sudden they checked in, they were done, right? They turned their light off because it was a very violent, very stressful circumstance to be in. This dude's no good, right? He's for all intents and purposes, he's a piece of shit. He's shooting kites to the fellas all the time, right? I talked to some people that were in the Corcoran SHU with them, and they were like, "Bro, this dude programmed like he was a homeboy. He was shooting kites, he was shooting reports. He never got answers. The homeboys never got back at him. It wasn't like they were trying to rock him to sleep so that they could, set him up to get hurt. They just ignored him. But he, super norteño, was like, nah, I'm still a homeboy. And I'm still gonna do this stuff. And he lived in a cell with a guy from San Jose who was also no good. Um, and previously, that dude from Sanjo, he wasn't going out to yard, right? Because why you gonna go out there and get in a fight, for nothing really? If you're not affiliated, if you're not in the mix, it really makes no sense to go outside in Corcoran and get into it on a concrete yard, right? Like, what are you fighting for? What are you like? It just didn't make sense. You might as well just stay in the cell and do your thing. And I guess that's what this guy was doing. And then Little Man moves in there because Corcoran will sell you up. I had a celly in Corcoran. I wasn't allowed to have one in the Bay, but I was in Corcoran. And so Little Man moves in there. Now you got two dudes that are labeled as Northerners, but neither one of them are welcome under the umbrella. And Little Man starts making this dude go out to the concrete yards. Like, nah, fool, it's yard time. You're gonna go. And I can imagine being in the cell with this guy, and you're just laid up, right? Just doing whatever you do when that's your status, right? And then this guy moves in all gung ho, like, nah, fool, you better turn the light on. You better go out to the yard, put it down for the homies. What homies, bro? We're not homies. We're not. We're not homies. But he was in his own mind. So I thought it was interesting. It gives you a little perspective into this guy. And like I said, I don't know him personally, so I don't want to get into the personal stuff. But from what I'd heard, he was just down for the warfare, and he was very much committed. And it's a trip because just because you think you're a homeboy doesn't mean the homeboys think you're a homeboy. And I have seen that play out in prison a few times. You join your neighborhood and you're a part of your neighborhood, and that's based on growing up and your personal experience. You guys know each other, you know each other's families. It's a community, but it's also something more. And that something more, if it doesn't ever show up for you on the streets, it will show up for you in prison. And you're not the decider of your fate, right? You can do some things to influence your route, but at the end of the day, it's really not up to you, right? It's not up to you if you're in the car. It's up to them, right? And whether you like it or not, uh, that's who's gonna be listened to. So this dude can do all the right things. He can send the kites. He can write the reports. He can go to the yard. He can get into it with cats. I had heard one incident where he went out to the concrete yard with this NLR cat named Irish. Apparently, like one of the biggest white dudes to ever enter the Department of Corrections. You guys let me know in the comments if you're familiar with them. I've heard the name, but I've never seen them. But homeboy's like, bro, this is a big ass wood. Like this wood was fucking huge. And one of the biggest people I ever seen in my life. And it so happened that that's who Little Man was going out to yard with. And Little Man, by all accounts, was a very little man, like fragile, frail looking dude. He was not an intimidating, you know, figure in terms of how he was built. With the business, apparently pull a knife on you and use it in a heartbeat. But from the shoulders, not a huge challenge. Versus fucking Goliath, right? Coming out to the yard, and and sure enough, man, they're bringing Irish out there, and Little Man is already on the yard. He's not cuffed, he's waiting. And normally, from my understanding, right, I was in Corcoran Sue, but I wasn't there during these Gladiator years, so that's not my experience. But from my understanding, the protocol was, you get out to the yard first, you uncuff, you back up, they bring out the next person who's going to be somebody that you're going to get off with, uh, and you let them finish uncuffing, and then there's this little like chessboard kind of marked out on the ground, and you let them get past that, and then you guys hit. And the idea is also you're not right under the gun. The gunner is right above that area where they're letting the individual out at. That's also the little window for the gunner to look down there. And you don't want to be right under the gun and get hit, right? Most people don't. That's what happened to Little Man. As soon as this fool got his cuffs off, before he had cleared the space, Little Man rushed him. And the gunner, true to form, peeled his cap. He had a Mongolian. Little Man was still rocking a Mongolian. And peeled his cap with the block gun. Took off a chunk of his Mongolian and left him laid out there. So Irish never even put hands on him, right? Which probably, from the sounds of it, sounds like Irish would have probably hurt him more than that damn block gun did. Uh, but so that was just him, and you can have all that commitment, you can have all that passion, you can be determined, you could be a little J Caddis, right? I don't know if he was or not, but you could be a little J Caddis, and it doesn't matter if that door's closed, that door's closed, right? But some people won't let that go, and I don't think it's just because of politics or whatever else. There's pride, there's ego. And when you grow up as a child embracing this identity and embracing these numbers and colors and letters and all that other stuff, you don't want to give it up always. You're not always ready to hang it up just because the fellas are ready to hang you up. And that was the case with Little Man, and ultimately it cost him his life, right? From my understanding, he he came out and he got whacked. Because he wasn't welcome. He wasn't one of the cool kids anymore. And I use that as an expression, not literally. But uh, it's a sad situation. Sounds like he went out the way that he came in, but you will find folks like that, and I think it's a reminder maybe, or a little glimpse into, this prison shit's different. It's different than the neighborhood stuff. Um, it's more of a business, right? It's not just your friends from your area. It's a larger collective of people that have their own agenda, and it doesn't matter how much the folks from your neighborhoods like you or don't like you or whatever. Prison is a different experience, and like I say, it is what it is. It's unfortunate. I don't like to hear about people losing their lives unless they got crimes against children. So, sad situation. But I thought I'd fill in that little gap, so to speak, in their stories. And like I said, something quick and easy to put out there for you guys, man. So that's it. Take care. Stay tuned. More content coming all the time. Help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. Help your community because they need you. Take care.